What's going on, man? What's going on? What went wrong? Where did you feel it went wrong for you? You just took too much time drawing? Okay. Doing the graph, yeah. So check this out. Tests don't matter. Let me tell you why tests don't matter. Because check this out. I've said this once before on stream. What is a ladder? What is a ladder system? Like in StarCraft 2. What's a ladder system? What is it? You win trophies in... No. That is not correct. Because tests, school, careers, and StarCraft 2 all have one thing in common. They all have one thing in common. One pivotal thing in common. What do you think that is? These three seemingly not connected things. What do they do? Rank people, kind of, but how? How do they rank people? So you're on the right track with that answer. But how are they being ranked is the more important question. Yeah. But what are those? But it's the what does it all mean, Basil? No, the results is not it. Not it. Not it. There's a P word I'm looking for here. Single P word. Give you a minute or two more. A P word, yes. Yes. Close. Not quite production. They're a measure of progression. So, tell me something. They're a measure of progression. And now, why are they a measure of progression? How are they a measure of progression? Well, the answer to that is actually a lot simpler than you think. So, let's take a career. Let's take my career, for example. My measure of progression is based on the rank of petty officer or officer that you've reached. Not everyone progresses at the same rate, right? Some people progress more slowly. Some people progress more quickly, right? Tests are the same way. Tests have nothing to do with measuring your intelligence, to measure your retention of subject. They don't have anything, they almost don't have anything to do with the test at all. The test is only there to measure how much you've progressed and how much you've learned from where you started, right? So let's say you're doing a calculus course and you know nothing about calculus at the start of it. Like you're a math newbie, right? And this is your entry into higher math, which it's like the entry level of entry level, higher level maths, to be fair. Now, If you bomb a test and you couldn't fucking figure out how to draw some squiggly lines on a graph, right? It means that you haven't progressed as far in that level of understanding as other people might have. But you said, and I'll quote you, you said that that you could do derivatives and integrals, which means that you've probably progressed more in those areas than other people have. So when you really boil it down, all school is trying to do is trying to give you information, try to get you to understand it within the structure of how it's being taught. The structure is the class. The structure is the ladder. The structure is your corporation. All of these things are measures of progress. Every single one of them. Not everyone gets promoted in their companies or in their careers as fast as other people do. Whatever roles come into play here, it just depends. Not everybody progresses as quickly in StarCraft as other people do, because other people might have an inborn talent, they might put in more work, they might just have a more analytical mind and can understand things on the fly and make quick calculations of what they need to do, but whilst at the same time being able to remember that there's certain upkeep things that have to happen every so often. These are all measures of progress. Every single one of them. All of them. Measure your progression within the structure. Every one of them. The second you realize that, the more you realize that you bombed a test. Big deal. Who cares? No one gives a shit. And I'll tell you this. We go to Harvard, right? You and I go to Harvard Law. Or Harvard Medical, right? We all go. You know, we're in a class of 50 people, shall we say, of our graduating class. Well, I graduate bottom of the class. Here's the deal. When you focus on and get hypercritical about the tiniest things, the more you're going to shit all over the big picture. Because you're going to hyper obsess over the little shit. Okay? That's the deal. This is the lesson in life. The more hyper aware you are of things and the more critical you are of those things, the more likely that you're going to struggle with them. That seems a little counterintuitive, but it's true. So, you should chill the fuck out. Don't get me wrong. You still want to commit time to being on your craft, to be on, in this instance, learning math. Try to sit down and critically think about whether or not what you didn't really understand about the subject. You don't want to get too relaxed, and this is the thing. There is a balance. There's a healthy balance between whether or not you hyper-focus on stuff and you get really down on yourself for not knowing one thing. You're doing just fine. It's important to take a step back and remember, I'm doing just fine. Because check this out. You want to know something crazy? Here's a statistic for you. If you make the equivalent of 36,000 United States dollars a year, you're in the upper 1% of the world. That's fucking insane. Okay? You're in the upper, you already exist within the upper 1% if you make that much a year. That is a lot of money. But if you educate yourself, you don't quit, you go, okay, today I didn't really understand math. I struggled with my graphing and calculus. Okay, fine. That's fine. I guarantee you, if you went to your teacher or professor or instructor or whatever you want to call them, I guarantee you, say, man, I'm really upset that I got these wrong. They'll be like, dude, you're okay. It's fine. Keep trying. If you have a professor or a teacher who el maestro es muy mal, if they give you bad advice, if they give you the, you're stupid, you're never going to make it, those teachers aren't worth they aren't worth the ground they walk on. They are pieces of shit. They are designed to be the obstacles that are going to get in your way. And it's your job to overcome them and prove to them that they're wrong. That their outlook on life is naive, myopic, and generally lacks any degree of empathy and humanity. Exactly. That's the type of teacher you want to have in your ballpark. You want this teacher. This teacher, that teacher right there, that's going to be the teacher that's going to help you. Because they go, "Oh my God, what happened?" They know you can do better. Exactly. One bad day doesn't make you bad. It means you were bad today. Doesn't mean you're going to be bad tomorrow, or the next day, or the day after that, or the month after that, or the year after that. It means you had a shitty day. Everybody has shitty days. It's important to not focus too hard on the here and now, and and once in a while, when you have those bad times, to look at the bigger picture. Did you walk away with a better understanding of something? If the answer is yes, you won. That's how you win at life. You win at life by being able to walk away from a situation going, I learned a little bit. If you learned a little bit and you deepened your understanding, even a fraction, guess what? One. Take the time to celebrate those little victories. Because if you look at the things that you do wrong and you don't take the time to look at the great things that you do, here, a little one there, little one there, little one there, little one there, little one there. You're going to see really fast that those little victories outweigh your mistakes by a fucking enormous amount. Now, I won't tell you, don't address when you make mistakes, because guess what? While it's important to look at your victories, guess what the best teacher is? Guess what the best teacher is? Actually, you know what? I'm going to ask you this question. What's the best teacher? What is the single greatest teacher you're ever going to have in life? You actually encompassed it with more than one word, but the simple answer is failure. Failing hard. I hope you fail. And I mean that in the best way. Because failing and knowing why you failed will teach you more than any success ever could. Because those are going to be the things that stick with you the most. I promise you this. That when you hit the floor is a pretty goddamn good teacher. I promise you this. Let me put this into context, and I'll give you my experience because I actually talked about this. So, let's get this replay. So check this out. So I started streaming again in 2020, as you're probably aware. And when I started streaming again, that was a time in my life where my life was in pretty serious turmoil. Really serious turmoil. I had just gotten from a really, really terrible experience of that at the start of the year, I was... My best to put this in a way most people can understand. In the military, we call it being put on report. But it's effectively I was charged with breaking military law. So the United States military is governed by a set of articles that we call the UCMJ, or the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So at the beginning of the year, I was charged with failure to obey a lawful order, failure to obey the order of a superior officer, and falsifying official statements. My career was in serious jeopardy at that moment. It didn't end there. I was awarded 30 days restriction, 30 days extra duty. What this means is that I had to do additional work on top of the work that I already did every day. It was at a scheduled time. And I was restricted to whatever liberties and luxuries that I was allowed. I had to do 3 uniform inspections a day. First inspection was in my dress uniform. The second inspection was in my service uniform. And the last inspection was in my working uniform. I then changed to go to my extra duty, which was for 2.5 to 3 hours. And then I would be allowed 1 hour of recreation time where I could upkeep my uniforms and read. I was allowed 3 square meals a day, and I had to report to the Master at Arms 3 times a day for each inspection. I had to do that for 30 days. While being underway, while doing my duties and responsibilities as one of the ITs on board that vessel. And it was one of the more humbling moments in my life. Now, I had requested to get the ability during my rec times, so long as my uniforms maintained their A+ standard, if I could recreate. And there was a friend of mine, former friend of mine now, who I wanted to play a card game with. I used to play Magic the Gathering pretty religiously. I was a very, very big, avid player into Magic the Gathering paper, Magic the Gathering. And I wanted to be able to play with him during the 1 hour that I was allowed to recreate between 2100 and 2200. So I requested and I requested. I, honest to God, I should have done it in writing rather than verbally like I was. So that way, if I was told no, there was a paper trail. And if I was told yes, there was a paper trail. So it couldn't have been denied. I learned this now, and I knew it then, really, but I didn't practice that. And it was my mistake to do that. Well, I got caught. One chief claimed that, my chief actually, who I worked for, claimed that I was told that I wasn't allowed to. I argued the opposite because I had been allowed to. And well, I was the kid who was the fuck up and on restriction, so it's my word against his, so I ended up losing there. And I ended up getting put on report again while I was on restriction. And there was a whole case that went up through. I went up to what's called a disciplinary review board, where a bunch of E7s, or chief petty officers and above, basically review you as a sailor and just decide whether or not they're going to send you up to the senior officers and allow them to pass judgment. Well, they decided that I needed to go to see the XO, who's the XO stands for Executive Officer. And the XO, we were back in port at this time. We weren't underway anymore, thankfully. But it was probably I would say it's probably my lowest point in life. It was definitely a ugly crying situation. I'm not gonna replicate it here, obviously. But they had me call my wife and everything, like call her, tell her your fucking career's over, tell her that this is what's going on. And it was like it felt like Julius Caesar being stabbed to death by the Senate, because at that point it felt like, anyway, that every single one of my the people who I worked for had turned their backs on me, and they wanted me to burn. They wanted me to burn, and they wanted my career to be over. Fortunately, it was meant to be a infliction of pain, emotional and mental pain, to be able to teach me a lesson. Well, at the time, I was not able to really process and receive this lesson, because at this point I had given up. I had fully given up, and I believed that my chain of command was only out to get me, that none of them were trustworthy, that no one around me was trustworthy, and that I had no friends everywhere I went, and I was content with leaving in the most uncomfortable fashion possible. And I had accepted that. I had accepted that I had been a overwhelming failure to them, and that's what I was going to be. That's what I was from then on. So we get back to the United States, because this is all mine. By the way, this is all happening while I'm forward deployed in Singapore. So what a situation to find yourself in. So I get back to the United States. COVID happens, and I transfer from my command. Not exactly in that order. I transfer from my command, thank God. But I get one counseling at the very end of it, which was for my transfer evaluation, which was a SP. Now, to give a brief synopsis on Navy evaluations, they're effectively a measurement of your performance and where you're measuring against your. And an SP is as low as you can get. I don't have it in front of me, but it is scathing. It basically said that I was unable to do anything correctly, and that I am not recommended for retention. Completely, they basically were giving me the advancement exam the day before that I had taken to get a chance at advancing, before they would give me an eval that would pretty much put me in the water for being able to advance ever again. Fast forward, I go to school, I transfer here to Virginia, I start streaming again. This is right around June 2020. Start streaming again, and I start with little things. I start trying to do the small things right. Because effectively at this stage, I had been knocked it's as if you're a senior in high school being kicked all the way back to like 6th grade. Right? That's effectively what had happened to my career. At least in my mind. Because I was a second-class petty officer at the time, and I had effectively felt like my career was over, and that I wasn't going to be able to progress, and that I was going to be stuck, and I'd get out at my whatever retention was, and I would just try be able to advance to the next pay grade. But things started to go right. I met a first class when I checked into my command by the name of IT1 Lane, Alyssa Lane. I wish she watched my streams, because I want to say that she single-handedly gave me faith that the Navy was right for me. And we'll get to what's happened recently that makes me much more positive outlook on. And I spent what she did for me is, because I had to turn in my significant problems, my SP eval to our education officer, and he was a chief, and he's like, honestly, I'm gonna level with you 100% IT2. You seem like a decent guy, but you shouldn't have transferred at all. The fact that they let you transfer, the Navy let you transfer, is a miracle, and I'm happy to see you here, and I'm happy that you're not like beaten down and dead, but you're lucky. There's someone out there looking out for you. And I didn't quite believe him, but then IT1 proved me wrong. Because I was told, yeah, you're not going to be able to take advancement exams for a year. You have to get an evaluation to be able to take the exams at all, be able to maintain your proficiency and measure your knowledge. And ads are gonna hang on. And she went to she went to our education service officer and said, hell no, 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 no. This kid, he's getting a special eval that I'm going to write for him right now, and he's going to take that advancement exam. I will not take no for an answer. So she did. She got me an eval that would allow me to take the exam. Couldn't do better than that, but she did that for me. And for me, that was so there are good people here. There are good people in the Navy that genuinely care about their people. And then I got to work with some really awesome peers. Those peers helped me become who I am today. Justin Skeeters, Thomas Smith, Ian Konitzer, Luis Rodriguez, all of these guys. There were people who I worked, Justin Weeks. He actually does watch the stream. If you ever see him, he's a Tide Pod Racer in the chat. He's a nice guy. I love him. All of these guys gave me just little tiny bits of faith that the Navy's a good place to be. And that Tide Pod Racer. Yeah, Tide Pod Racer. Like what you use to wash your lawn. But yeah, these guys, and as time went on, the leadership that I got to experience gave me a lot more faith that bad evaluation wasn't going to define me as a sailor, and that I needed to try and keep trying rather than give in to despair and let my past mistakes define me. I had a good chief. We're trying to remember his... Shit. I have him added on Facebook. Hang on. I want to pronounce his last name right. His first name is Lorenzo. Yeah, Lorenzo Miller was the first guy. He never talked down to me. Never. Apparently, a lot of other people had problems with him. I never did. Never did. Lorenzo Miller, is it? I want to say it's Raymond Sanders. Ainsworth Rose. All of these guys helped give me a little bit more faith in the military. They were good to me. They treated me with dignity and respect every single day. They lived a character of decency, respect, and general excellence. And as time went on, I got put into leadership roles that I never thought that I'd ever have if I had gone back in time. And when evaluations came up for the first go around, I had been learning my job, I had been getting qualified, I had been on time, I had been everything that I wasn't at my previous command. And they gave me a must promote out the gate as my first ranked eval. They're like, dude, you've been fucking doing great. You deserve this positive evaluation. We didn't expect that you'd be able to come here with a significant problems eval and turn it around and get a must promote, which is the second highest you can get, by the way. And I was ranked somewhere in like the high part of the pack there. Use these ads. So another year goes by. I take on more leadership roles. I show that I'm the best at what I do. I got fully qualified in my division. I started teaching people the concepts and of everything to be done within my division. I started taking on leadership roles and running them to a degree of excellence that impressed even the senior officers in my department. And evaluation time comes back around. I also get elected to the board of the Junior Sailors Association, so I'm leading people there too. I come up to my next evaluation cycle and they give me an EP eval. Up to that point, I had never been recognized as one of the best. And this was this put me out of 25 people, put me in the top 4. So that felt great. It felt fucking incredible. And time continued to go on. I got even higher points of leadership. Okay? Even higher points. I became the vice president of the Junior Sailors Association and raised more money, and I did more events than any other junior association that year. Period. We made innovations that no other JSA had at the time. And I began to train people in everything related to being in IT. And I found that I actually knew a lot of shit. A lot of shit that I had learned while I was on the ship, but I didn't think about that I knew these things because I had been intentionally down on myself and never gave myself the credit that I actually deserved. Evaluation cycle came again. That was this year. I get my second EP back to back. Second one. And this time, I was ranked number 2. The only guy who was ranked above me was like, let me put it this way. He would be what I would describe as the quintessential perfect sailor. Perfect. Like, he made no major mistakes ever. He had major collateral duties and ran them expertly. He had level of knowledge that was unsurpassed even by me. And he was a kind, decent, gold man of a soul. He was just, he's never been loud. He's never been belligerent. He's always just been quietly a kind man. He got the number 1. Well deserved. And he's going to be getting commissioned as an officer. I know it. He's trying to cross deck over to the Coast Guard, and I know he's going to get picked up. There's no way he does. That's the kind of guy who I would fucking lay over a mine for. He's that kind of person. Well, this past Tuesday, there was a command urinalysis sweep. And then while this command urinalysis sweep was going on, we had a command all hands the previous Friday, which means that everybody in the command gets together in one big auditorium, and the CO puts out information. The commanding officer talks to us, effectively. Talks to us about where the command is going, the mission that we're doing, how we're impacting the Navy, the world, everything. But she calls in another emergency all hands while this urinalysis is going on. It's urinalysis sweep. And everybody kind of gets a little nervous because when you have a command-wide urinalysis sweep after a whole bunch of people pop positive for illicit and prescribed drugs, people get a little nervous. We're thinking, oh God, what just happened? Not to mention that previous week, the CO was on the phone with the President of the United States. Kind of scary. You think, oh my God, what did NCDoc do? Why are we gonna be fucking absolutely destroyed? Like, what's gonna happen? She says, I want to recognize some people. Starts calling some names. Calls some names I know. Some really fucking badass sailors. One of my friends, Frailer, she gets called up there. She wasn't there, but she's one of the people who's getting recognized. And it starts to sink in. They're calling meritorious advancement selectees. Then they call my name. Then they call my name. I almost fell out of my chair. I wanted to start crying right there. I was so overwhelmed with emotions because it was joy, it was like relief on so many different levels. I had gotten promoted to E5 in 2015, and I had spent 5 years doing my best to ruin my. And I spend the next 3 years doing my best to rebuild it. And and try to get myself onto a path that will lead me to greater success and happiness in my life and contentment with my life. And in that moment where I slumped over in my chair, I realized that everything that I've been working towards since I got here was this moment. And I admittedly, so my departmental LPO is sitting to my left, and one of the guys who works for me was sitting to my right, and they both go, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I'm like, I'm good. I just need to get up. So I'm using the chairs in front of me to climb up almost off the floor to make my way to the main seat, to up in front of everybody. Everybody's there, right? And I can't tell you how uncomfortable I felt. I felt so uncomfortable within the moment. And when I pulled my hand out, my hand was doing this. It was like my hand was shaking. I didn't know what to do. And the CEO is standing in front of me, and she goes, why are you guys all so nervous? And I said, ma'am, I don't like being in front of this many people. And she's like, but you're here for great reasons. I'm like, I know, I'm just so uncomfortable. Like, 'cause I can't sit there and make a speech about this, you know? Like, what is that gonna do? But it's, and then she says, hey, are you okay with me or Master Chief hitting her? Do you have someone in mind? And there's been one guy, Gregory Charles is his name, and this is a man who doesn't give up on anyone. He doesn't give up on a single human being, and he sees value and talent in every single person that he meets, and he brings out that value, that talent, that passion in every single person who he's around. He literally has an aura of excellence around him, and it's intoxicating. And I'm looking, I'm panning, I'm like, I know there's a couple people who I know who I'd want. And I see him in the crowd, and I look, and I was like, yeah, I see a certain senior chief over there. And she's like, all right, we'll call him up here. And I sound off his name. Everyone in the auditorium could hear me. And I say, Senior Chief Charles! And the Master Chief and my Command Master Chief, who's standing to my left, and the CO, who's standing right in front of me, goes, man, Senior, you better get up here. This guy wants you. And Senior, this man is glowing, right? He's a really dark-skinned guy. Like, I swear to God, he's as dark as my green screen. But you could see he's lit up like it's the 4th of fucking July. Like, he's in Vegas, and he just won $10 million, right? He's glowing and has the fucking biggest goddamn smile on his face. Like, if his smile could be perfectly interpreted, it would be the Joker, except instead of wickedness, it would be sheer fucking joy and pride. Nothing else. And I was like, and he's like, you deserve this. You have worked so fucking hard at this, and you deserve this more than anyone else. And literally every single person who knew me came up, and they were like, this is what you earned. You earned this. Every bit of this you earned. Fucking swear to God. That right there, of the last 10 years of my life, minus my children being born, and seeing them for the first time, getting married to quite possibly one of the best fucking wives that's ever existed. Facts. I don't care what anyone says. Those 4 things, getting married to my wife, seeing my children born, and getting promoted to first class, were the greatest moments of my life. And it does feel like a dream come true. You have 51 seconds left. I've been delaying it for like fucking 15 minutes now while I do this diatribe story. Maybe I should highlight this and make it into a YouTube video about not giving up and persevering, not quitting. Make a TED talk, yeah. But this year, that's the highlight of my year. Hands down, is getting picked for meritorious advancement to first. I have it on my uniform, and sometimes I can't stop it. It's just like, it was worth it. Every bit of it was worth it. All right, we're gonna take a quick ad break. I'm gonna go get some water. Why don't you guys enjoy some hilarious memes? Oh. Welcome back from our... Got myself an partly invisible tea. Hey man, just remember, it's not... Sometimes it's not about the destination. Sometimes it's about that struggle, and knowing that eventually you're gonna work yourself up to a pinnacle moment. And I'm glad you feel better. I told you that story mostly to give you kind of a understanding of how, when you look at the big picture, you really can see that even when you make mistakes, those mistakes can easily be outweighed, but it's gonna take a lot of work, perseverance, just... It's grinding that axe, never giving up, and continuing to persevere. Especially once you've found something you're good at. Because we're gonna take a quick break from start, because we're in the just chatting. So, and I feel like we could be in a just chatting mood. So we're gonna watch a video that's slightly demotivational, but it's important, and you'll see why. I'm gonna pull it up here because it's one of those videos that kind of puts a proper context on life and really just kind of puts in perspective just exactly what you should. Here we go.
There are only two things I can tell you today that come with absolutely no agenda. The first is congratulations. The second is good luck. Everything else is what I like to call the dirty truth, which is just another way of saying it's my opinion. And in my opinion, you have all been given some terrible advice. And that advice is this: follow your passion. Every time I watch the Oscars, I cringe when some famous movie star, trophy in hand, starts to deconstruct the secret of their success. It's always the same thing. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't have what it takes, kid. And the ever-popular, never give up on your dreams. Look, I understand the importance of persistence and the value of encouragement, but who tells a stranger to never give up on their dreams without even knowing what it is they're dreaming? I mean, how can Lady Gaga possibly know where your passion will lead you? Have these people never seen American Idol? Year after year, thousands of aspiring American Idols show up with great expectations, only to learn that they don't possess the skills they thought they did. What's really amazing, though, is not their lack of talent. The world's full of people who can't sing. It's their genuine shock at being rejected. The incredible realization that their passion and their ability had nothing to do with each other. Look, if we're talking about your hobby, by all means, let your passion lead you. But when it comes to making a living, it's easy to forget the dirty truth. Just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean you won't suck at it. And just because you've earned a degree in your chosen field, it doesn't mean you're going to find your dream job. Dream jobs are usually just that, dreams. But their imaginary existence just might keep you from exploring careers that offer a legitimate chance to perform meaningful work and develop a genuine passion for the job you already have. Because here's another dirty truth: your happiness on the job has very little to do with the work itself. On Dirty Jobs, I remember a very successful septic tank cleaner, a multimillionaire who told me the secret to his success. I looked around to see where everyone else was headed, he said, and then I went the opposite way. Then I got good at my work. Then I began to prosper, and then one day I realized I was passionate about other people's crap. I've heard that same basic story from welders, plumbers, carpenters, electricians, HVAC professionals, hundreds of other skilled tradesmen who followed opportunity, not passion, and prospered as a result. Consider the reality of the current job market. Right now, millions of people with degrees and diplomas are out there competing for a relatively narrow set of opportunities that polite society calls good careers. Now, meanwhile, employers are struggling to fill nearly 5.8 million jobs that nobody's trained to do. This is the skills gap. It's real, and its cause is actually very simple. When people follow their passion, they miss out on all kinds of opportunities they didn't even know existed. When I was 16, I wanted to follow in my grandfather's footsteps. He was a skilled tradesman, could build a house without a blueprint. That was my passion, and I followed it for years. I took all the shop classes at school. I did all I could to absorb the knowledge and skill that came so easily to my granddad. Unfortunately, the handy gene is recessive. It skipped right over me, and I struggled mightily to overcome my deficiencies, but I couldn't. I was one of those contestants on American Idol who believed his passion was enough to ensure his success. One day, I brought home a sconce I had made in wood shop. Looked like a paramecium. After a heavy sigh, my granddad gave me the best advice I've ever received. He told me, Mike, you can still be a tradesman, but only if you get yourself a different kind of toolbox. At the time, this felt contrary to everything I believed about the importance of passion and persistence and staying the course. But of course, he was right, because staying the course, that only makes sense if you're headed in a sensible direction. And while passion is way too important to be without, it is way too fickle to follow around. Which brings us to the final dirty truth. Never follow your passion, but always bring it with you. Congratulations again, and good luck. I'm Mike Rowe from MicroWorks for Prager University.
Now, I might not generally agree with PragerU and also the things that they have to say, but I like that video for the reason of it highlights the most important takeaways from the story I told, of effectively what's my comeback story. I had believed that just the sheer passion in my that I had, undirected, was going to be enough to carry me to great success. Well, I found over through severe trials and tribulation and not trying to really understand what I was doing and how I was doing it, that I was those people who believed that they had everything it took and they were going to be great one day, but they just never quite got there. I was that guy for a long time. Then I stopped specifically trying to follow my passions. I kind of started doing this and using this as an outlet of my general passions. I'm passionate about games. I love them. Am I making any money at this? Fuck no. I've made like $150 over 3 years. Tell me how that's sustainable. Like, fuck, come on. Like, that's been getting paid like hundredths of a percent every fucking... Like, come on. This is never gonna happen. So, what's the point of all this? The point of all of this is that I started to really become about passionate. And what I actually found is that I was really good at leading people. I was really good at being an honest person, always did what he said he was. No matter what. If it meant that I was going to spend more time at work and spend time away from my family to make sure that people were taken care of, I was going to do that. My wife understood. She understood exactly what I was doing the whole time. I tried to do everything I could to make sure that the proper time was being given. I don't always succeed in that. I'm not always the greatest person. Sometimes I'm not a great. I always try to continue to be in any way that I can. And realistically speaking, I made first. That's a momentous and a monumental achievement given the amount of progress that I had to make in such a short period of time. I had to make up for, effectively, 9 years of bad habits that had been thoroughly ingrained into my mind. I had to spend 3 years listening to what people were telling me, following the wise advice and having to sift through the bad advice given. I had to learn a degree of patience and control. And I found that I was really good at leading people. I was good at learning things that helped me teach. Teach people how to be more intelligent. Teach people to be more aware about anything. When I'm at work, half the time I'm talking about shit that has nothing to do with work. I'll be sitting there and typing away at my computer, doing whatever I have to do. Can't talk about it because the military. But I'll be sitting there at my computer, typing away, talking about stuff. Maybe I get curious about something and look it up on Google. Maybe I'm listening to a YouTube video about something interesting. Maybe I want to laugh and I watch something funny. Maybe I want to learn about the socioeconomics of the world right now. Maybe I want to learn about one thing or another. I want to become competent and to be able to speak toward it. I developed a insatiable thirst to know things. I always have had it, but I never stopped to consider how that would be important. I never stopped to think that just knowing things, for the sake of knowing them, was going to be useful. I always thought, there's just little facts. It doesn't matter. And people are like, no, you've taken the time to really learn on a subject that people don't know. And you're teaching people that. And it took a long time to really understand that act is what people had been doing to me. They had been teaching me question things, learn about things, always be receptive to new information, always be receptive to advice. When someone takes the time out of their day to talk to you about something and to try to teach you, take the time to listen. Because advice can come from really unlikely sources. Even from some of the people you might find the least competent. If they're in the middle of doing something important, they take the time to stop, teach you something, that's worth it. Have that thirst. Because knowing is half of the success. Other half, actually applying that knowledge. Nothing will come to you for free. Everything is going to be a struggle. But when you start doing something and you beat on your craft over and over and over and repeat and keep going and don't stop, keep going. I know it's hard, but keep going. You're going to get there. Through sheer force of will, you'll get there. This is... I think I'm done talking.